Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go. Yeah.
2.2 seconds. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Monday, 5525. May the 5th be with you, because yesterday, that was May 4th. But yesterday was one of those days in sports where you're just happy to be a fan. And Coca, I felt more like a fan last night than I have in a long time. And I want to thank Gary Bettman in the National Hockey League, because I've been very open with you that Game 7 of the NHL playoff series, it's the number one. You go to overtime in a Game 7, that's it. You've hit pay dirt. I want to take a moment because of how important St. Louis is to me and to this show. And I want to do this. I've been practicing this, Coca, all morning. And so here I go. 4869. To all the fans of the St. Louis Blues, while it may be true that with only 2.2 seconds to go, you gave up a game-tying goal in Winnipeg after having a 2-goal lead with 2 minutes left in the third period of a Game 7 on the road, where you were fully expecting to be in the second round against the Dallas Stars, who had won their own Game 7 just a day earlier. It wasn't over when it was tied. It was over when you gave up another goal in the second overtime. I'm really sorry. This one must hurt more than any other St. Louis pain that you've had in sports. And I want you to go back into the annals of your emotional pit and don't think about recency bias. Think about your whole life. I don't care how old you are. Losing a game the way the St. Louis Blues lost to the Winnipeg Jets last night, you'll never see again. You'll never feel again. There is no equivalent when you're down 2 goals with 2 minutes to go. You get one. The net is empty. And then on the last shot of the game, because in hockey, the goal has to pass the line fully before time expires. It's actually a time sport. What is the equivalent? There is none. A walk-off home run in the bottom of the ninth, forget about it. I've seen it. It's exciting. I'm looking at you, Toronto. It's exciting, I grant you, but not like what happened in Winnipeg. In basketball, a 3 as time expires. Curry up, and away. Miss you, Dave Van Horn. That's exciting. Ray Allen shot 2000 and what is it, 16, Coca? Can't remember what year. That was exciting. But nothing compares to what I saw last night. Nothing in my entire sports career as a fan or as an executive. And I don't know how to say this, but please, it's not about recency. It's not. There was a game-tying goal with 1.6 seconds or 2.2 seconds left in the third period after having scored one only under 2 minutes earlier. It's so unlikely. So unlikely. It had never happened in the history of hockey, which goes back a super long way. No one had scored 2 goals in the final 2 minutes to tie a Game 7. Nobody. I mean, much like the night before, no one ever had a hat trick in the third period. That's exciting. I'm happy for the Dallas Stars to get a hat trick and advance past the Avalanche. I'm sorry to my folks in Denver. Sorry, but that's exciting. But nothing like what we saw in Winnipeg. So I'm watching the game, Coca, and I'm watching it in the prone position. And I'm not the youngest guy in the world. And my core puts the W in weak. I'm a runner, and I don't really work on my core at all other than, with pizza and chocolate chip cookies. So I'm in the prone position, and I got a thing going on because I'm watching two events, which this time of year I'm doing all the time without the ability to have picture in picture. So I've got two things: phone, TV. And I'm deciding what's going to be on the small, what's going to be on the big screen. But I'm sort of lying down. I'm sort of propped up against the pillow as you would be when you're reading in bed. And the game is ending, and it's a 1-goal game. It's super exciting. The Winnipeg Jets player whiffs on a shot, somehow gets the puck back, shoots it again, deflects in, and I'm seeing it, which isn't all that common for me at a hockey game to follow the puck as well as I was, but I was locked in. Normally, I'm looking for reactions of the players, and don't tell me you don't know what I mean, because you do. But I was following the puck, and what I did, Coca, is that I sat up with such speed that I pulled my back. And I don't know why, because I had a visceral, screaming, exciting, oh my God reaction that you can't have while lying down. And so I had to get into the up position, and I did it with such speed and reckless indifference toward my vertebra that it caused some sort of like, dude, you're 57. Like, you can't make sudden moves like that anymore. But that sudden move, I will never forget first round of the 2025 NHL playoffs when the Winnipeg Jets, who, it's Winnipeg. Coca, help me here. Didn't they win the President's Trophy this year? Weren't they the best team in hockey for the entire season? And then they come in with a goalie who is on the ropes. And then they get to a game 7 against an 8 seed against now. St. Louis had been hot, but they were an 8 seed. This was 1-8. So I'm a little gimpy today, but I feel good. I feel reinvigorated because not only did I mean, it was just so many game 7s this weekend that it was perfect. The last game 7 of the weekend was the Rockets and the Warriors. I was rooting for the Rockets only in that I was rooting for the chaos, and the Rockets should have been favored, and they were favored in game 7 by a couple ducats. But I was thinking those are tickets, not points. I don't know why I said ducats. Correction, by a couple points. And the thing about the betting line is that we knew the Warriors were going to win because Jimmy Butler told us. Jimmy Butler guaranteed a win, Joe Namath style. And who are we not to listen to playoff Jimmy? He said, we're going to win together, we're going to lose together, but I know we're definitely going to win together come Sunday. I don't think he was thinking about the Jimmy Buffett song, although the game was on a Sunday, not a Monday. But all of that said, the game, what a series, what a game. But the Warriors, when I'm looking at them, it's still Steph Curry. Draymond Green hits a couple threes to start the game. He's playing really good lockdown defense. Not quite good enough to win Defensive Player of the Year, but good enough to be in the final 3. And then there's a 3, swish, 3, swish. I'm like, that doesn't look like Steph Curry. Buddy Hield scored 33 points. He hit 9 3-pointers, tied for the most in a game 7. Now, as a New Yorker, as a live and die Knick fan from the 90s, I assume that everybody was doing what I was doing, because what I was doing is saying 2 for 18. Ugh. I can't bear it. It still impacts me, and it's been over 30 years. And John Starks going 2 for 18 in game 7 in Houston. This game was in Houston. Buddy Hield is hitting every shot. I'm picturing myself at game 7, watching in person, thinking I'm going to get a title for the first time in my fan career, which started the day after the Knicks won the title in 73. So I am now 57, haven't seen a Knicks title. I was alive in 73, but don't remember it, was not a fan. It started when I was 6 years old in 1974. I was about to get a win. Starks goes 2 for 18, and Buddy frickin' Hield drops a 33 spot. Now it's first round. It's obviously makes no difference. If the Timberwolves take care of business, which I expect them to do over the Warriors, then it doesn't even matter. You barely remember. Next year at this time, when I ask you what happened in the first round last year, you're going to say you have no idea. And I can prove that to you right now. Those of you in the chat, please, nothing personal with David Samson, please let Coca know, who's managing the chat amongst the 20 things he's doing right now, and tell me exactly who won the NBA first round matchups last year. Ready, go. You won't be able to. The Golden State Warriors were just chucking threes and they were going in. The fact is, they hit as many threes. They made 18 3-pointers, which is more than the Rockets even attempted. It just seems to me that we should have known, and why the Rockets were favored this game. The Warriors have the Rockets number and have for a decade. The Rockets have been eliminated by the Warriors in 15, 16, 18, 19, 25. That's all Steph Curry. And Steph Curry is still Steph Curry. I don't know about you all, but when I clicked on a video of Stu Gatz yesterday, and Stu Gatz said he was going to break his silence, I tightened up a little bit, maybe started a little bead of sweat down my back. And then, of course, what he talked about in true Stu Gatz style was the fact that Steph Curry's better than LeBron. And I started thinking, that seems like a ridiculous take because it comes from Stu Gatz. But then I started thinking, wait a second. If the Golden State Warriors go on to win the title somehow, I don't know, Coca. I don't know. I think I'm going to have to believe that Steph Curry may overtake LeBron James. Is that even possible to say? Coca, you just whispered in my ear something. A, you don't have to whisper because no one can hear when you yell at me, though it does hurt my eardrum. You're telling me that 7 of the 8 teams from this year's second round are the same as last year, with the Warriors replacing the Mavericks, and you knew that off the top of your head? Because I'm going to say that is a crock of hooey. Oh, you saw the tweet. There's no way you remember that. No chance, toilet pants. So those were 2 game 7s yesterday. I'm still recovering. The day before, I do want to talk about Saturday's game 7s very briefly, just to let you know that you may think that I am only down on owners and players, but I'm not. When they do something that interests me that's nice, I'll mention it. Yes, it is true. In 2003, we flew our entire staff to New York for game 6. Our entire front office, no matter what your job was, you were on the field celebrating a World Series victory in 2003. We got everyone a plane. So what Steve Ballmer did was cool, but franchises do it with staff members. What Ballmer did is he did it with fans. He flew in a bunch of people to try to recreate the wall from the Intuit Dome to try to fluster the Denver Nuggets, and the Los Angeles Clippers got absolutely clip jointed. Absolutely down to the last toke. They were just done. It was a blowout. I don't know why we thought that a team with James Harden was going to win. You can't win. James Harden can't win. He's done. Can you imagine losing a game 7 with 4 different teams? Now, glass half full. It means that you've taken 4 teams to a game 7. But James Harden, to me, is living in Doc Rivers territory. James Harden is living in, hey, I got to a game 7. I'm sorry that I lost after a 3-1 lead. But hey, I got the 3-1 lead. That's true, James Harden. You did get to game 7s with the Rockets, Clippers, Nets, and Sixers, but you lost with all 4 teams. I would assume that the Clippers woke up this morning, 2 days after their loss, and they just said, we can't continue like this. There's no way we are running this back. Can't be. God, do I love game 7s. As an executive watching your team, whether it's a game 7 playoff game or game 14 of a regular season, You know where I stand on injuries and how they hurt my tummy. You know where I stand when I'm watching a home game and I'm looking out for everything. A little nugget, the fan who fell out of the stands in Pittsburgh is still in critical condition, but is not dead and apparently has a chance to recover, which is an absolute miracle. But you know that I spend time worrying about injuries at home, fans and players on the road. I only worry about players. Not my problem if a fan gets injured on the road. You know, I've said that. I have a level of empathy, but it's small in almost every regard. When you're watching your team play and there are self-inflicted mistakes, you're angry, but a physical error, it happens, part of the game. You don't lose your mind. Ground ball through the legs just happens. Overthrows happens. An overthrow to the wrong base, that'll annoy me for 10 years. The injuries that have taken place recently at first base, and we started touching on it, I would say 2 weeks ago, Coca, when Arise got the concussion in San Diego, whenever that was, with that collision at first base. We saw 2 happen over the last few days, and this is it. We've now had it happen. So the inflection point happens when you can no longer dismiss an injury. Sometimes it only takes one injury, like when Buster Posey gets run over at the plate by Scott Cousins in a game involving the Marlins and the Giants, and they change the rules of how a catcher and can defend home plate and basically change the rules on collisions. When Arise got a concussion, it started the discussion of the possibility of having a lane for the first base defender and the runner who's trying to get first base. And we talked about having side-by-side bases. When Jose Ramirez, one of the greatest players in baseball, a perennial finalist for MVP, you're talking about a Guardian player who, were he not on the Guardians and were he to have had more postseason success, you would be talking about him as one of the best players of this generation. That's how good he is, folks. When he gets hurt the way he did at first base, running out a batted ball, people's attention is all of a sudden you're sitting up more. You're thinking more. Then when you get a ruptured patellar tendon by the Red Sox first baseman who was running to first base, clipped his foot on the bag, ruptured his left patellar tendon. He's out for the year. That's it. So the first thing that happens is that an owner calls the commissioner and speaks to him and says that I've had enough. We got to have the side-by-side basis. Then the union gets involved and they talk about the fact that we don't want to really make this part of collective bargaining. This is not a trade. This is about keeping people healthy. This is about us wanting our players not to be hurt. And by the way, owners have the exact same goal. It's the one area, interestingly enough, where the union and management are totally aligned, because nothing is worse than a player without a guaranteed contract getting hurt. It's bad for the player. It's bad for the team. Where it differs is like old people injuries, where the union doesn't want to put an age limit on player contracts or a limit on the number of years that a contract will be, much like exists in the NBA, where you can't go out of your mind selling contracts to old guys. But the union is fine with that in baseball. They want old people to get guaranteed money. So that is where we differ. But where it's the same as with young players when they miss time, and Casas being out means that this is going to be an issue that is going to get taken care of in the next collective bargaining agreement. And there's not even a doubt in my mind. While it may not be what Coco wants, Coco would like some sort of beanbag chair as the second bag, something very cushy and nice so you can run through it and not worry about hyperextending a knee or rupturing a tendon or spraining an ankle or tripping over the bag and eating dirt. I do not believe that it will come with a different material, But I do believe there will be a second first base, which means first base will be twice as big. So I'm going to do a bit of a longer wait to see here, Coca, because I believe that this longer, bigger, wider first base is going to happen, but not before the next collective bargaining agreement. So the wait to see is pretty simple in that it will be part of the next CBA, making first base bigger. Now, why do I say that? Because you would think that if there's something that can be gotten with great agreement, because you are in that window where if a young player's getting hurt and owners and the union doesn't want it, that then it would happen, that it would change. But here's the difference. When you are as close to a new negotiation as they are, you are in a position where neither side says yes to the sky being blue. Because the view is that you're giving up leverage of some sort. The view is that you want to hold everything for trading purposes during the course of a negotiation. So what you do is, hey, do you agree that this table we're sitting at is square? Well, no, it seems more like a pentagon shape. It seems not exactly perfect. All right, I don't want to argue about the shape of the table anymore. Do you agree that we should have a second base? Well, no. Wait a minute. You definitely agree. No, we don't. That's really how the conversation goes. And so therefore, it has to wait to be part of the actual collective bargaining agreement, which is why on April 25th, I told you my wait to see only 10 days ago was there won't be a double base next season. And my different wait to see is there will be a double base once there's a new CBA. Because what a terrible way to go in. Have you ever done that with your significant other, Coca, or spouse or friend, where you have an argument about something and you take a position that you know is wrong, but you're doing it because you feel as though that if you don't take the position, it's going to sacrifice a future position? So, hey, I don't want to have to go to the next family reunion, so I'm not going to go to this one, even though this one's in Hawaii and the next one is in Des Moines. Not that I don't love the 0.2 of you from Des Moines, but you know what I'm saying. And so you say, hey, listen, I'm out on Hawaii, like cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's one of my favorite expressions. Who doesn't do that? Wouldn't it be great, Coca, if we were told by someone when we were doing that and we actually believed them? But alas, we don't. Oh, I've got a good one, Coca. Could you play some music, please? I don't know what's happening. My guess is the music isn't coming unless I can hear it. Coca just played this, so you want to talk to Samson music. I didn't hear it. Did you hear it? You may have heard it. See, here's a little surprise for you all. Not that this is an announcement of any kind, but it's a surprise. The surprise is that Coca has a bunch of new equipment and that he's working out how to figure which button to press, how to press it, what to do. Why he's got the new equipment, wait to see. But given the new equipment that we're using, I'm using the same thing. You may notice, for those of you paying attention, that the microphone is coming from a different angle. For those of you watching the show, if you're listening, I would assume nothing is different other than the So You Want to Talk to Samson music did not play. Da 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 da. I don't think that was it, by the way, but that's the best I could come up with. So you want to talk to Samson? Get into my X at David P. Samson. Go to davidsamsonpodcast.com. I am begging you for questions. Why? Because you're doing great. You send a ton of them. But I'm going to really think about doing a sort of mailbag episode more often because you guys ask so many amazing questions. So, good morning, David. Good morning. During your time in Montreal, MLB considered retraction. You meant contraction, but that's okay. I love the question. During your time in Montreal, MLB considered retraction involving the Expos in Minnesota. What prompted this consideration? And do you consider the Rockies and perhaps Pittsburgh or Miami as possible contractees now? Thanks for your time. Well, Gary, I appreciate you. And other than telling you that it's contraction, not retraction, I want to bring you back to when I first started in baseball. One of my first owners' meetings as team president was during a relatively tense collective bargaining negotiation, and there were threats of contracting two teams, which is the equivalent of eliminating 50 jobs. And the union was not happy with that. Here's a little memory boost for all of you from the year 2000 and 2001. Contraction was a negotiating ploy. Two teams were never going to be contracted. There was a thought, was it going to be Florida at that time? The Marlins, John Henry didn't want to own them. He was like, all right, we can contract them. The Expos, they have no chance to survive in Montreal. Let's contract them. The Minnesota Twinkies, at the time, owned by the richest owner that existed. The Steve Cohen of baseball was a guy named Carl Pohlad, who owned the Minnesota Twins back in the day. His family owns it now. They're trying to sell it. Can't get the right price. One day they will. Contraction was used to put fear in the union because, above all, your job is to maintain jobs. While there were negotiations with baseball over what a contraction price would be, it was all done in order to provide plausible deniability that it was just a ploy. So you could present documents to the union. Contraction's real, man. We're negotiating with Samson. We're negotiating with Pohlad and with Henry. This is no joke. We're talking about how we're going to redistribute the players who are on those teams. Do they just become free agents? Is there a draft by the remaining 28 teams? We're going through all sorts of contraction issues. Oh, side note, it was all a bunch of horse hockey. But it worked. Here's why they're not going to use it this time. Because baseball is way more focused on expansion. And you can't get expansion approved if it's a replacement. That's not expansion. Replacement is replacement. Replacement is sort of like relocation. They're not going down to 28 teams. They're going up to 32 teams. Now, there may be totally different cities involved. I also would like to point out that the Pittsburgh Pirates, one of the most historic franchises in baseball history, with one of the best pitchers, though he did get shelled his last outing. Well, shelled for him, giving up several home runs, like 3 home runs. Paul Skeens did. May have cost him the Cy Young already, but there's a long way to go. We're only 20% done with the baseball season. The Marlins have a set lease until 2000 and I want to say 38. If my recollection was a 30-year lease starting 2009, though it could have been 30 years from when it first started in 2012, which would be 2042. I can go back to my books right behind me, which have the actual lease, so I can go look. It would be in the non-relocation agreement for those of you looking for the public documents, which are completely available to the public, which is how you know when a deal gets done, because you've got publicly available full documents. Full. Not like Vegas style. Not like Washington, D.C. style. I'm talking fully executed, fleshed out, multi-100-page documents available for you. All for you. The reason why, Gary, that there will be no even threat of contraction is that the reason you threat something during collective bargaining is when it is your view that that threat will lead to a concession, will lead to a change of position. And in order for that to happen, then the threat has to be a credible threat. The threat has to be one that the other side in the negotiation. So, for example, when you're fighting with your spouse and you say, you know what? I'm never going to watch another sporting event. Like, what? And Of course you're lying. That's not even credible. Of course you're going to. I will never listen to that Samson guy again. Give me a break. You're going to listen to me after this coming up break. We're going to review not a movie, but we have to talk about it. And then we're going to talk about Gregg Popovich. And we'll do all of that after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Thank you. This is a hugely important time for our show as we are at episode 1269. Nice. Way to go, Coca. We have been doing this since October of 2019. We are going to continue to do this because of you, because of what you do. You download, you listen, you subscribe to our YouTube page. Thank you. Hit the subscribe button if you're watching. If you're listening, then please get your friends to listen, watch. I got a bunch of new fans this weekend, Coke. I was walking in New York City, and a couple of people on 2nd Avenue. It was a very funny situation, actually. I was walking toward the subway to go to a Broadway play on Friday. There's a point to this story, Coca, don't worry. And I walk right past Pedro Pascal, who was walking south on 2nd Avenue as I was walking north. And that's that. So that was, I didn't stop him, though I would have, like, what happened to you, man? But I didn't. And then someone stopped me and wanted to talk about Nothing Personal, Coca. And they were thankful for the show, loved the show, etc. And it got me thinking that the reason why we do what we do is not for fame, maybe for fortune, but it is because of the feelings that we have toward you, the audience, the respect that we have for you giving us your time. So thank you for that. So I'm on the subway Friday night meeting Pablo Torre. We're going to see a Broadway play with our significant others. Well, in his case, with his wife. And we are going to see the George Clooney play called Good Night and Good Luck. We had a dinner reservation. Pablo was 31 minutes late to dinner, which is outrageous. So we had to shovel down Indian food before going to the Winter Garden Theater, where Betty Buckley was nowhere to be found, nor were any Jellicle cats. God, that is a joke that no one will get. Nobody, although I think maybe 10.2% of you will. And this is a play called Good Night, Good Luck that is based on the movie that George Clooney wrote. Yes, George Clooney dyed his hair. Yes, one of the guys from Billions is in it, as well as Clark Gregg, who you've seen in Marvel movies, among other places. Yes, there's a graduate of Smithtown High School who's in it. I think her name is Alana Glazer. But let me talk about what Good Night, Good Luck is about. George Clooney plays Edward R. Murrow. He does Murrow. I do this every time, Coca. I have a thing with that name. Edward R. Murrow. He played friendly. He played the producer in the movie, but in the play, he actually plays the journalist. It is about CBS News. Now, pay attention. You know that I do work with CBS Sports and CBS Sports HQ. You may have seen me there. Nothing but love for CBS. This is a story in the 50s about a network that is going after Senator Joe McCarthy, who decided through hearings to go after those people he thought were communists. If you didn't live through the McCarthy era, which I did not, you only know about it through video, you know about it through the stories of your parents and grandparents. If you don't understand what happened, you could look around today and understand what censorship is, what it is to have large platforms where you're not exactly sure what's being said, what's true, what's not true, where you are forced to make decisions based on things that you perceive to be true that turn out not to be true, but it's too late because you acted on the falsehood. To be in a country where we decide that we are going to prosecute. That is our plan. We are going to be in a country where we have decided that if you don't agree with me, your opinion is not just irrelevant, It's actionable. That is not what we want out of our journalists. That's not what we want out of our country. And again, this is not me as a liberal. Believe me. But it just can't be. And what CBS News did, what they had the guts to do, and this is relevant now to what's going on with the Paramount Skydance merger, what's going on with the resignation of the executive producer of 60 Minutes, what's going on all over the airwaves at Disney, who's on the air, who's not, what you're allowed to say and what you're not, what you're allowed to do and what you're not. For some reason, we view the 2020s as the time where being a character and a caricature is enough to be a political leader or to run to be a political leader. We are in a time where the number of serious journalists you can almost count on your hand because they're not given the support because there's so much money involved and so much risk because of the world that we're living in and the censorship under which we are living. If you can't get to the play at George Clooney, and George Clooney is not going to have an extended run because he's not with his wife and kids, because his wife won't even come to the U.S. for fear of certain of our policies. All of that said, then go watch the movie. Because the worst thing you can do is not learn from history. It's the worst thing. If you don't, you're going to repeat it. I want to give credit to Dave Portnoy, who took care of an issue that happened at a bar of his in Philadelphia where I just can't even imagine how it happened, where a nightclub sign was put together by employees that said F the Jews. And Dave Portnoy, with his platform, said, boy, there's a lot I could do. I could fire people. I could ruin people's lives. I could call people out. Here's an idea. Let's try this. We don't do it too often, but let's try it. Let's try maybe a teachable moment. Let's send these absolute dolts to Auschwitz and let them look at a concentration camp and let them understand what it is to annihilate, what genocide is, what it is to have hatred of a group of people. I think it's the right move that he's making, because if I'm going to believe what I say, which I do, unequivocally, I believe in what I say, which is one of the issues that some people have with my show and our show. We've got to teach people, because once the final Holocaust survivor passes away, are we just subject to the people who are Holocaust deniers? And that goes for all sorts of other stuff in history. Do we just deny it if it's not on video, or if we don't believe the video, or if we don't believe the stories when it goes away? One of the great traditions that people have, I don't know if you knew this, Coca, but when someone dies in the Jewish culture and religion, there is a celebration of life after, and you tell stories, and that's how people's memory lives on, through stories that are told from generation to generation. But the purpose of that is in order to let people understand when times are different and when technological advances are made, or your eyeball is being read so you know when to buy a pair of jeans, whatever the case may be, when AI has taken over everything, it gives you an opportunity to make sure you don't make the same mistakes, but you make different ones. And I am all in favor of different mistakes, because we're always going to make mistakes as a race, as a gender, as a person, as a father, as a husband, as a brother, as a son. We're all going to make mistakes. Do you learn from them? That's the question. Go see Good Night and Good Luck, and you decide whether we've learned anything in 75 years, whether you agree or disagree. Just ask yourself the question, have we learned? I, for one, was sad, Coca, but we knew it was coming, that Gregg Popovich was not going to coach anymore. We haven't really seen much of him, other than we know that he had some sort of stroke, we believe. We know that he's been recovering. We know that he's made an appearance or two. We know he had a public fall. We know he's 76. We know that he is one of the greatest coaches of all time. And we know that the life of an NBA coach or an MLB manager or a football coach, it is super hard to do into your 70s. That's why you move over to media. You can do media into your 90s. Hard to do a show in your 90s, like a stage show. Frankie Valli's doing one in Vegas. It's Total Weekend at Bernie's time. Go watch the video on that if you haven't seen it. It's something else, unless I'm being fooled by TikTok and Instagram. Poor Frankie Valli. Oh, what a night. So Gregg Popovich announced that he's done coaching. And so it got me thinking, is he the greatest coach, not just in NBA history, but is he the greatest coach in all of history? Is he greater than Vince Lombardi? Is he greater than Red Auerbach? Is he greater than Phil Jackson? Is he greater than John Wooden? Is he greater than Gino at Cincinnati? Yeah, at Connecticut. Yes, I don't want to mispronounce his last name. What makes a coach? Is it winning titles with different players throughout a long career? Changing over your roster, but still winning titles? Going from David Robinson to Tim Duncan through and through? Is that what does it? Is it by taking care of your players off the court and being a role model to them? Is it gaining the respect of your players that comes with old age and comes with stability and continuity? But that actually comes from the owner. The fact is, the owner of the San Antonio Spurs is the one, Peter Holt, that allowed Gregg Popovich to become Gregg Popovich, because otherwise you're just another great coach in a line of great coaches. You're Phil Jackson. You go from team to team. You win everywhere, but you become not associated. While you could be one of the greatest coaches in the game, you become more associated with maybe your players, more associated with who you dated, maybe associated with winning a championship as a player with the Knicks. But Gregg Popovich, we've never had that. We associate him solely with the Spurs. We associate him solely with what he did, not just when he was coaching in the Olympics, but what he does every year on the sidelines, whether the team won 70 or lost 70, won the ring or not. You associate him with this feeling of it's all going to be okay. And I've had the opportunity to speak to members of the media, people who work inside the NBA. And one of the great skills, and I've had this opportunity because I've always wanted to understand why I was so bad at hiring managers. What is it that a manager's supposed to have that would make me want to stay with that manager through thick and thin, through good times and bad, through championships and lottery picks? What is it that I am missing in the hiring process? And it turned out it was just me. If you are an owner who's got the patience and the willingness, the way Mickey Arison is with Eric Spoelstra, there's no other real example like it. You could say that Lacob is sort of being that way with Steve Kerr. You could. But we haven't really seen sustained bad play from the Warriors. I was thinking to myself, Coca, that would I have been able to change if someone had got it into my thick skull that the way you create greatness is by allowing greatness to be created? I always thought that the way to create greatness was more on me. And I didn't realize that actually there's opportunities for a whole bunch of coaches to be great, a whole bunch of managers to be great. You got to give them the chance. But then you get the real problem. The real problem is that if you allow 10 people to be great, you're lucky if one of them is great. Then you can say that you helped foment that greatness. But 90% of the time, you say to yourself, I did it wrong. I held on too long. I was blind. I should have known better than to keep this person doing this thing, thinking that the results would be different. So knowing that it's a 90% chance you're going to get it wrong, why do you allow yourself the opportunity to even get the 10%? Why would you? The math doesn't work. When you win a couple titles, then it's a few years, then you win another title, another few years. You have this extended greatness with occasional moments of crap, and you've got the right mentality as an owner, and you've got the right mentality as a coach and the right relationship between coach and owner, coach and GM, only if all of that happens. And I mean, all of that has to happen. Can this greatness be unveiled? And Pop did it. Pop had the opportunity, and Pop took advantage of the opportunity. There is a very bad job out there right now, and that is to become the coach of the Spurs. Now, why am I nervous for Mitch Johnson, who is going to be the new coach? I'll tell you. Because maybe it was Peter Holt who allowed this, the owner. So maybe there's a chance that he will show this sort of loyalty going forward to the next coach. Or maybe he'll realize there's only one Popovich and a couple bad seasons out of Wembanyama, and bing, bang, boom, you're moving on from Johnson. And it got me thinking about one team only and my view of that team. Anybody want to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, where you go from Noel to Cowher to Tomlin, back to back to back, 3 coaches, and I don't know the number, Coca, 50 years, whatever the number is. The cries for his job, Mike Tomlin, the cries for him to be let go with reckless disregard toward whether or not greatness can be achieved with another Super Bowl win, whether or not regular season greatness is enough to overcome postseason mediocrity. There's maybe one franchise in all the major sports who has this. And I'm putting the Heat sort of close and the Warriors close to the Steelers, but not quite at all. Now, Mitch Johnson is going to come in. He's been the acting head coach. You may know his name because when Popovich had the mild stroke in November, Johnson was the interim coach. I'm just interested to see what they're going to be. As I end with Gregg Popovich, I will tell you that people are judged by the people with whom they empower. Gregg Popovich has been involved with Mike Budenholzer, Mike Brown, Brett Brown, PJ Carlissimo, James Borrego, Ima Udoka, Will Hardy, Jacques Vaughn, Becky Hammond, Jim Boland, Joe Prunty, Mitch Johnson, Quinn Snyder. Does it sound familiar? Steve Kerr, Doc Rivers, and Monty Williams played under Popovich. His coaching tree rivals Walsh, Parcells. He's going to be missed greatly. Nothing. Personal pick of the day. I've got a problem, Coca. When I told people to take Luxor Cafe in the Kentucky Derby, I didn't think it'd be a muddy track. You can't go with a Japanese horse named after a place in Egypt or a place where you get a schmear and think that you're going to get that done in the mud. Don't be ridiculous. Coca's making me take the loss for that. We did have Corbin Day on Saturday. I must admit, Corbin's pitching great, but the Mariners are just better. Let's go, Seattle. This is your year. Ichiro, number retirement, Hall of Fame, first pitch. How about a World Series, first ever? That would make for the greatest year in franchise history. But in the meantime, we'll take a win over the Rangers. The Rangers, who, by the way, oi, are they scuffling? Oi. Last night, we had the Pacers 7.5 versus the Cavaliers. I don't think people understand how bad the Miami Heat are and how beating the Heat by 69 points is wholly irrelevant. The Indiana Pacers, you can see by the way they dismantled the Bucks, number one. But more importantly, they're just good. And they got a game 1 victory in Cleveland. That is a huge, huge start for the Pacers. So we are now 50-55, and I am greatly annoyed the fact that we only went 2-1 this weekend. Do you know that every horse in the Kentucky Derby is a relative of Secretariat? I asked my friend to confirm that stat. My friend did, and I said, my God, that's a lot of siren. I don't know if you know this, like American Pharoah. I spoke to the owner once. Look at me, David. And what they do is they just stub the guy out, and the horse is having fun every other day, 10 times a day. You get paid a ton of money, and most of the horses end up as crap. In this case, Secretariat had so many kids and grandkids that everyone in the Kentucky Derby, none of whom are as good as Secretariat, but they're all relatives of Secretariat. That's pretty cool. Tonight, the Florida Panthers start their series against the Toronto Maple Leafs in Toronto. Toronto hasn't won a Stanley Cup in God knows how long, but it feels like the 50s. The Maple Leafs are underdogs at home against the Panthers trying to defend their Stanley Cup. We're taking the plus 105. Maple Leafs plus 105 over the Panthers. We've got game 1 of Knicks Celtics tonight, game 1 of Nuggets Thunder. Lot going on. I got to go now. It's just business. But I'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.